Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to this little adjunct to the Fluffenhammer, where I'm just going to be talking about stuff that I like, really. Going to be having a little bit of a chinwag with myself, since Adam is off doing something bizarre in the warp, I'm not quite sure what. Oh, the webway, I think that's where he was last time I saw him. He was heading sort of Black Library woods, sort of away from Comora. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, what I really want to talk to you about this time round is something that's very near and dear to my heart, or indeed many of my organs, as the case may be. I want to talk to you about the Haemonculus Covens. Oh my goodness, the Haemonculus. They're one of my favourite things in Warhammer 40,000. They're one of my favourite creatures from one of my favourite races and armies in the 40k universe. They are nominally part of the Drukhari, as they've now been christened, the Dark Elder, as they once were. They are members of the ancient Eldari race, the humanoid race of aliens who once ruled the entire universe. Once upon a time, many, many, many moons ago, before, as Eldrad Ulthran, Farseer of Ulthwé puts it, before the first ancestors of humanity slopped their way out of the ocean, the Eldari ruled the entire universe, and as we all know, that went very badly. Very badly. The Eldari Empire, because they cultivated technology to such a degree that they could warp reality around themselves, they could extinguish or ignite suns on a whim, they could cultivate planets, invert reality, time and space. They could create pocket dimensions. They could make themselves functionally immortal. So life became just one big carnival to them. It became just this swell of hedonism, and we all know where that led, don't we? The birth of Slaanesh, the fall of the Eldari Empire, the birth of a chaos god fueled by their excesses and hedonism, their obsession with pain and aesthetics and all sorts of unpleasant things. And the Drukhari, or the Dark Eldar, they are the descendants, or rather the survivors, of those portions of Eldari society that were so corrupt, that took hedonism, pleasure, sensation to such a degree that they had to retreat even from mainstream Eldari society, and they set up port in the Webway in these various node cities apart from the main universe, because the Webway is kind of like a... It's like it's a series of tunnels and labyrinths that weave their way between the warp and physical reality. They're not quite in one place or the other. They're apart from both, but they can access both as well. It's kind of cool. But within that, the Webway, there are cities. There are lots of nodes where there are cities and settlements and little pocket dimensions, and one of them is Comora, the port city which became the home of the Drukhari. And the Haemonculus are wonderful. They are somewhat apart from the principal Drukhari society in the sense that they regard themselves as apart from the rest of the Drukhari, as the Drukhari regard themselves as from any other species or from their Craftworld kin. The Haemonculus are largely the descendants of those original Eldar that were around, or the Eldari that were around during the Fall, the sort of heads of the cults of pleasure that ultimately gave birth to Slaanesh. They are these ancient creatures. Apart from some of the Necrons, some of the Catan, the Chaos Gods, and some other creatures in the 40k universe, they're some of the oldest creatures, oldest extant, that is still living creatures in the 40k universe. They've been around for a long, long time. And you know what I like about them more than anything? They are some of the few creatures in the 40k universe who are just having a grand old time. Think like, you know how Hannibal Lecter is portrayed in the Hannibal TV series, where he just finds unadulterated joy in pretty much everything. He is intrigued by humanity to such a degree that he finds its evils and hypocrisies and malevolence and disgraces as interesting and as artistic as its art and its ascendancies, its transgressions and transcendences. That's what the Haemonculus are like. They're like that, and they're also like the Cenobites, Clive Barker's Cenobites from the Hellraiser mythos. In fact, that's exactly what they are. They are an attempt to take the Cenobites and make 40k versions of them. They are Cenobites in space. They are Hellraiser 4 bloodlines. The descendants of the original Eldari who survived the fall of the cults of pleasure that facilitated the birth of Slaanesh. You might have thought that after the birth of Slaanesh they'd have recanted of their hedonism and their excess and sort of become almost monkish like the Craftworld Eldari, the Asiani, but no, nothing of it. No, that's not what they did. That is not what they did. If anything, they went the other way. They dived head first into utter hedonism, into a state of excess whereby they even modify their own bodies. Pain doesn't mean anything to them. Disease doesn't mean anything to them. Death doesn't mean anything to them. They undergo self-surgery all the time, and they enjoy pain, and because it's an extreme of sensation. In fact, some of the homunculi are so warped and twisted that they collect different species of suffering. They regard it as almost like a sort of eccentric collection or an artistic expression. The same goes for deaths. Urian Rakarth is one of the oldest homunculi and one of the most respected. He collects different kinds of death. What happens is when they die, when an homunculi is destroyed either by one of his rivals or on the field of battle in the material universe, all that happens is they use their technology, which is so advanced and arcane that it's basically magic. It may as well be magic. It feels like magic to the other species of the universe, and even to the other Drakari. That's how advanced they are. Their body can be destroyed in any way you want, but their soul will always go back to Comora. It will find one of the many other clone bodies that they've prepared for themselves, and it will just inhabit that. Homunculi are notoriously difficult to kill. You can reduce their physical form to atoms, and they're still going to come back. It takes very, very inventive forms of murder to ultimately destroy a homunculi. It can be done. It can be done. But as I say, most of them don't care. They enjoy it. They enjoy pain. They enjoy suffering. They enjoy mutilation. They find it interesting. And to them, the universe is just this grand carnival of sensations and flesh to sculpt. That's another thing. They not only work on themselves, they are the most exquisite surgeons in all of creation. And geneticists, by the way. They are geneticists. They can manipulate genetic matter in such a way that makes Fabius Bile look like a kid, look like a fumbling neophyte. They are flesh crafters par excellence, to the point whereby part of their artistry is creating the most grotesque, the most bizarre, the most strange, and to their eyes, beautiful creatures imaginable. They have whole flocks of servants who attend to them called Raks, and Raks are just Drukhari. They're Dark Elder, they're Drukhari who have gotten bored with their lifetimes because the Drukhari society is such that the Dark Elder are basically immortal. Again, because of the technology provided by the services provided by the homunculi, Dark Elder can just regrow themselves. They can just, when they die or when they're destroyed, very often they've paid for the services of a homunculi who can just regrow them or a new version of them. So they get bored. They get bored of existence. They're also just naturally long-lived, like all the Eldari are. And they get bored. They get bored of existence. They get bored of living. They get bored of their static states. And they suffer from this very particular form of ennui, which is really profound and is like beyond any human despair you could imagine. And in the throes of that boredom and that despair, a lot of Drukhari, they go to the homunculi and they give themselves bodily and soul to the homunculi. And the homunculi are only too happy to accept them, and they sculpt them, they chop them apart, they refashion them and stitch them together and form these creatures called Raks, which are like Cenobites. They're like Cenobites in waiting. They're not quite Cenobites yet. And the Raks really, they actually really enjoy it. They enjoy the extreme of sensation, the suffering of the surgery, the hideousness of their states and their conditions. They love it. They really enjoy it. And they all vie to become homunculi in their own right, because the homunculi are basically gods. They have made themselves these fleshly, atemporal gods. They've even come to the point, according to the latest Drukhari Codex, the Homunculi have come to the point whereby they've started, because they are anticipating either the victory of chaos or the collapse of the material universe into entropy, like the heat death of the universe. That would be annoying to them because they're having a grand old time out there. So what they've done, or some of them have done, is use their technology to create pocket dimensions or little synthetic realities that are apart from both the material universe and the warp. They operate according to their own rules, and they are hermetically sealed. So the material universe, the reality at large, could collapse around them, and these little pocket dimensions would still exist. And in that regard, they can do what they like. Nothing matters. Absolutely nothing matters. They are immortal. They, even if chaos wins, if sort of Abaddon gets his way and the warp rips open and the demons spill through and the material universe becomes a paradise, a dark paradise of chaos, or a dark Eden of chaos, Homunculi are going to be fine. Apparently what they've done is they love the Tyranids. They absolutely love the Tyranids because they're so adaptable and they're so easy to genetically sculpt and create new monstrosities from. They've flooded a lot of these pocket planes with cultivated Tyranid organisms, as well as examples from all the other species in the material universe, and some that don't exist as well, some they've created themselves. So all they have to do is retreat to these pocket dimensions, and suddenly they've got new playgrounds to play in, with an infinity of flesh and victims and subjects to sculpt and play with. They're very happy creatures, the Homunculi, unlike almost anything in the 40k universe. Sadism is an art for them. Pain is delight. Pain is it's religion. It's a hymn to them, and being static in one flesh doesn't mean anything to them. They can actually, bodies to them mean nothing. In the Drukhari Codex, it points out how the Homunculi, they can chop and change and surgically alter their bodies however they wish, and they can also just transplant their consciousnesses into new bodies willy-nilly, as and how they want. And that's part of the fun for them. They consider themselves to be very stylish. They think that sporting new deformities and surgical mutilations is the height of fashion. Taking their bodies to the utmost extremes is a form of beauty for them, and I love that. I think that's absolutely amazing. There's something transcendent about the Homunculi and transgressive. They operate in contexts that are like the Cenobites, that are far beyond anything you can possibly imagine. Extremes of sensation that are almost Zen-like. You know, they can perceive in manners and ways that make them truly ascended in their own sadistic, cruel ways. And I find that amazing. Also, aesthetically, they're fantastic. They look like Cenobites. They are these strange, wayfish, floating, mutilated creatures that have all of these tertiary limbs and added bits and sculpted and chopped and changed and anatomy. They are absolutely wonderful. One of my favourite things in the 40k universe. They've changed quite a lot since their inception. They were introduced in this sort of Cenobitic way back in 3rd Ed, actually, when the Dark Elder, as they were back then, were the new race. They were the new species. But they were kind of shunted to the side. They weren't all that, to be honest. They weren't all that significant. They didn't become significant until the 5th Ed Drukhari Codex, the Dark Elder Codex, that significantly rewrote most of the background for the Dark Elder, made them much more interesting, because they just weren't doing very well. I think it was Phil Kelly, actually. Phil Kelly came along with this new Drukhari Codex and completely changed the game, made them so interesting, enhanced this notion, the politics of Comora. The Homunculi, they're not that interested in it, but they are densely involved in the politics of Comora. The Archons of the Cabals might think that they rule Comora. It's just not true. Without the Haemonculus, Comora stops. In fact, without the Haemonculus, the Drukhari race dies, because they are so entrenched in the politics of that city. Without and Haemonculus Coven on their side, a Drukhari Cabal will not survive. It's the Haemonculi that do the surgeries that heal their wounded soldiers, also that restore their wounded soldiers after they're killed in combat or in the various, skullduggeries in games, political games and assassinations that are played. Without the sponsorship or the interest even of an Haemonculi, an Archon is done. An Archon will be killed just in an instant by these rivals. However, with the patronage of an Haemonculus, oh my goodness, a Cabal can rise high. They really can. You don't piss off the Haemonculi, basically. If you insult a Haemonculus somehow, you're going to wish for death. Death would be, a bliss compared to what will happen to you. You will suffer in ways you could not imagine, and for a long, 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 long time. They're amazing. I love the Haemonculi. They are one of the parts of 40k that are sincerely horrific. Sincerely horrific. And yet they have these wonderful gallows comedy elements to them, almost, where they find it funny. They are some of the happiest creatures in the 40k universe, the Haemonculi. They don't care about anything. They're these ancient, almost cyberitic creatures who are just totally indulgent. And also, they're abstract. They've lived for so long, they've become abstract. They've learned how to combine alchemy and science and a kind of occultism. So they do things like, for example, they've cultivated themselves to the point whereby they can taste emotions. They can experience emotions vicariously, and they can do things like they could take a human, say, commissar, and render that commissar down in such a manner whereby they could drink what's refined from them and taste that commissar's experiences. They could taste these moments of betrayal when they've had to shoot a beloved officer or something like that, and they would adore that. They would experience it vicariously. They could kidnap a Khorne berserker, render him down, and taste whatever wine is produced from him and experience his rage and his murderousness for themselves. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love that stuff. There's something slightly fairy tale about them, something slightly mythic, and yet also hideously Cronenbergian and sort of Clive Barkerish. They are these giant grab bags or sort of vessels for body horror in 40k, and some of my favourite things in the entire game. I must say, I'm really tempted, since 9th edition is on the up and up, it's imminent. I'm very tempted to try and start a Haemonculi Coven army, just as something totally different, totally new. And also, one of the fun things as a hobbyist, the Drukhari army, it lets you go nuts because racks can look like anything. The Haemonculi take pleasure in making each rack unique, and the more bizarre and disfigured, the more elaborate, the better. Same for the grotesques. All the creatures in their menageries, they love to display them. That's what it is when they spill into the material universe. When they fight, when they're engaged in war, they're not engaged in warfare. It's like a carnival to them. They're loving it. It's a carnival and a harvest in one. They are having fun. I love it to bits. And I'm very tempted to just go nuts, buy lots of plastic kits and start stitching them and sculpting them together to see what I get. I hope you enjoyed that, loves. I'll be back reasonably soon with another one of these, because this is actually quite fun. So until next time, my loves, bye-bye!